All right, college basketball preview. We had the first set of games kick off yesterday in college basketball, and we wanted to do our preview for the upcoming season, looking at the Power Five conference outlooks coming into this year to kind of be the basis of our preview. So we'll start in the Big Ten. I think the question that I wanted to raise here was, is this finally Matt Painter's year? You know, looking at his resume, he's made the NCAA tournament 16 times with the Boilermakers since 2006. Five-time Big Ten regular season champ, two-time Big Ten conference champ, conference tourney champ. Made it to the Final Four a couple years ago with that Zach Edey team. He has the preseason #1 team in the nation with his Purdue Boilermakers and the #1 preseason player of the year in Braden Smith, who Braden Smith gave Painter 7th AP All-American since 2016-17. They also got San Diego State or South Dakota State transfer Oscar Clough. So there's really no guarantees that he will have a roster as stacked as this one in the future. So what's the outlook for Purdue this year?
Yeah, they're playing right now, actually, without Trey Kaufman-Renn. He had some sort of hip injury, so they're probably not going to blow out Evansville. But
Purple Aces, let's go.
Don't be alarmed. Yeah, don't be alarmed. Oh, they suck. They didn't blow them out. Well, they're without their power forward. So, North Carolina 08-09, I believe, was the last AP #1 team, preseason AP #1 team to win the title. So that was 16, 17 years ago. So yeah, Purdue will be looking to be the first to do that since Tyler Hansborough in that team. Kansas has sucked in the last couple of years as starting at preseason #1. Yeah, nothing's given, but this is definitely the most on paper stacked team they've had. Last time we saw them took Houston, national runner-up Houston, to the very end of that game. So it shows you that without Zach Edey, they're still a good team. And then they add all these guys are now seniors, add a couple transfers. On paper, they have every reason to be #1, but we'll see once the season plays out. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, I think Michigan and Illinois are going to be right there behind Purdue, possibly right there with Purdue. Illinois diving into the European transfer, European players again, and they got what's his name? They get Stojakovic. Was that Cal? Didn't they get Stojakovic in the portal?
I think it's a different Croatian type name that you're thinking of.
A different Croatian name. Okay. Okay. Well, but yeah, and then Michigan, second year under Dusty May. I think that they'll be pretty good as well. And then right below, and then everywhere else, it's a log jam. All these teams could finish really high or could just miss out on the tournament. You got Wisconsin, the two LA schools, USC, UCLA. Michigan State's not. This is kind of an under the radar Michigan State team. Usually they're overranked about every year. This year they're not getting as much hype as they usually are, so that could be beneficial to them. Oregon's bringing back a lot of the same guys from last year. That was kind of an underrated team, in my opinion. Ohio State put up 118 points against IU Indy yesterday.
My alma mater.
Yeah, your alma mater. Don't look at how many points they gave up in that game, but
oh man,
yeah,
I couldn't be happier to see my two favorite teams putting up that many points.
Yeah. Lately, Ohio State's just been one of those teams that can beat anybody or lose to anybody. Like they went into Mackey Arena last year and won at Purdue. That was really impressive.
In Diebler's first game coaching them.
Yeah, but then they missed the tournament too. So it's And then Indiana has the potential to be last year's Kentucky team. What I mean by that is an entirely new team, entirely new identity. And then comes in, plays really well, ends up as a top 3 seed. That I'd say that they have potential to be that. We know nothing about them. because none of these guys have played together before. New coaching staff, but they're definitely a team to keep an eye on. Okay, the other big name conference is the SEC. They had 14 teams make the NCAA tournament last year. 2 teams make the Final Four, and they ultimately had the champion in Florida. As for our prompts for this discussion, you were talking about will they regress, and I said yes because there's really no other way. They can't really improve from that. I don't think so. I do think they will regress. Difference this year is I don't think there's as much top end talent. Like I don't think the team. I think Kentucky could be really good. Florida, I know they lost last night, but they still have that national champion pedigree. Plus, they have 2 transfers at the guard position. So over time, that could be a team that gels and becomes really good at the end. And Alabama's could be a team too, but it's going to be all those teams right below that in the tier. It's going to make or break decide if the SEC is going to be as good this year or not.
Yeah, you mentioned that Kentucky could be really good this year. They better be because they're paying their team reportedly $21 million, which is more than Ohio State's football team from last season that won the national championship. So pretty high expectations for Kentucky. Yeah, the talent that left Florida is big. I don't know that they could, you don't even really see the question, can Florida repeat as champions? It's going to be really difficult to see them make it all the way back. But yeah, 14 of the 16 teams earning NCAA tournament bids last season, arguably the strongest conference in men's college basketball history after topping the Big East 11 bid tally in 2011. So yeah, it should be a pretty interesting conference that has been largely the strongest in basketball the last couple of years. But yeah, one league that hasn't really been is the ACC. Can this league bounce back from last year's disappointment? And what's been kind of a disappointment for the past couple of years, but the conference sent only 3 teams to the tournament last year for the first time since the 99-2000 season.
And 2 of them lost in the first round.
Exactly. Now, Duke looks like it should remain at the top as a tournament contender, as it has always been. But UNC's fall off show the difficulties that many programs are facing in this new climate of college basketball. Can this roster save Hubert Davis's job, which I think is the hottest seat in the nation right now? On the flip side, ACC is bringing in Will Wade from McNeese State to coach in NC State as he brings on Darryn Williams and a lot of other top talent to that program, which could help bolster this conference's outlook for the year, as well as Louisville, the resurgence with Louisville and Pat Kelsey. So what do you think about ACC being able to bounce back and get more teams into the tournament and really like the Hubert Davis issue?
I think they'll get a few more. It's kind of assuming the SEC doesn't get as many as last year. Clemson's always another team that just never a threat, but they're always around that 5 to 8 seed line in the tournament. They're a team that usually makes it. I expect UNC to bounce back, not to their elite levels again, but a competitive level. Louisville and Duke, I feel like, are clearly the top tier teams in this conference. I'm excited for next week. We get the Duke and Kentucky U of L game next week. That game's usually later in the December, but it's actually happening next week, so that'll be a fun one to watch. But yeah, the Boozer twins and all of the hoopla that Duke's brought in recruit wise, they won't. Their personnel will be different than last year, but as far as their ranking, it won't be much different than it was last year.
Yeah. And then for the last 2 conferences, Big 12 and Big East, are highlighted by 2 guys, really. 2 players in the Big 12, Darryn Peterson and AJ Dybantsa. And then the Big East, it's the 2 heavyweight coaches, Rick Pitino and Dan Hurley. Darryn Peterson, AJ Dybantsa will be definitely competing for the Big 12 Player of the Year, probably the NBA first pick. Got to see Dybantsa play last night, put up 21. He's quite the talent, but they will be, competing with All-Americans JT Toppin from Texas Tech, PJ Haggerty at Kansas State. So they might have something to say about that.
Don't forget about Koa Pete too. He put up 30. He put up 30 points last night in his debut.
Yeah.
So not saying it's sustainable, but if he can replicate some of that this year, he'll be named to watch as well for that Player of the Year.
Yep. With the Rick Pitino Dan Hurley rivalry, we've seen a lot of coaching rivalries in this sport, from Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and Wooden and Newell, Knight versus Keedy. This St. John's UConn trading dominance the past couple seasons, as both programs enter this year with national title ambitions. Their rivalry is really going to add a lot of excitement and intensity to this Big East conference, and really the sport as a whole. I think it's a treat to watch them every time they're on our screens.
Yeah, really, that's really all there is to say about the Big East. UConn and St. John's are clearly above everyone else this year. Creighton, Marquette might be lower end tournament teams. They're like the St. John's and UConn are clearly above everyone else. St. John's disappointment in the tournament after such a great year. They kind of didn't look like they deserved that 2 seed by how sloppy their offense was. And then UConn's just looking for a bounce back year. They earned the 8 or 9 seed last year and got bounced by Florida in the second round. Pretty low achieving UConn team if we're looking at recent history, because Dan Hurley, I'm sure, wants to get back to that national championship game that they won 2 years in a row.
Probably the greatest college basketball team in the history. But one last note, Houston, who was the runner-up last season, they may not be number one in the AP poll, but they are number one in KenPom, which factors in a lot of different statistical stats, that strength of schedule, opponents, all that stuff. So we'll see if Kelvin Sampson's crew can make it back. Love that team from last season. We'll see if he can bring them back in a deep tournament playoff run. That'll do it here.
All Sharp had to do was not just stay on his feet and hit that three. That's all they were that close to winning the title. Just don't, when you have a defender in the air, don't leave your feet. Just shot fake, let him fly past, and then shoot. Well, we would have done that, they would have won.
We've kind of come full circle with this. When we first started this podcast back in March, it was heavy on college basketball, so we are back into this thick of the college basketball season. We'll probably put this to rest until conference play comes around, when the calendar turns over.